Go start to finish on a quote through to a job, how it populates a table, how to read it, where everything comes from, what everything means, basically. Just don't quote in my name. Basically, this, you know how when you do a job and the job flows through and the guys go to site, you've got an estimate side and you've got an actual side. The estimate side comes from what you populate in here, right? So I'm just going to pick some, just a pre-build for you. A couple of pre-builds, those two there. You'll now see, so these are two pre-builds. So you got labour in a pre-build and you got materials in a pre-build. Basically, this pre-build, these two pre-builds are saying you've got $1,200 worth of resources available, resource cost available. So if you click this down arrow, 10 labour hours, roughly. And it's extracted that there is $141 worth of materials in those pre-builds. So if you click on one of them, you can see it'd be 74. That's the value it's plucking out there on the screen. And then timesing it, because there's two builds there, it's timesing it by 2 roughly. And then the labour component of it is pulled from here. Okay. So when you adjust all your times and stuff like that, it adjusts. I input all the costs into the back end, and that's how it gets all its figures through, basically. So depending on what you have through your pre-build. So I'm going to run through this top to bottom. So obviously I've talked about materials already. So that's your material value there that's populated from here. The markup and the cell, material cell. Jump down to this bottom table is the best way of explaining it. This is your labour cost rate, right? So this is populated. So we always work on a team rate. So a cost for a tradie in Nixon's is about 134 or $5. Cost of apprentice is a touch over 100. This number here is calculated on those two numbers divided by 2. Gives you an average cost per billable resource. And then we basically, the times in these pre-builds are the time it takes for 2 people to do the job. So it's double the time. So this job here would be 150 minutes for 2 people, basically. And then from here, so that's where your cost rate's populated from. We then have the markup here. So basically, and your cell here. So this figure times 300 minutes. This is when it gets a bit confusing in these tables. This figure there times it by 300 minutes. That's your labour cost that's extracted from the pre-build. That's what gets put into this table. So that's where I was going with it. I'll convert this to a job. So you can see now we have an actuals table here. So basically, when you create a PO or the guys go and make a PO, it will populate that figure there, that little actual materials figure. If a PO is not made, or if a PO is made and there's other stock used on the job, this number will not change. All right? Because the materials aren't getting allocated to populate that section. Okay, so this is where we're getting caught out, because what happens, right, if we schedule a technician to this job, if we go and schedule this to David, he's going to freak out.
Oh, can you not?
Out of all people choose.
If we schedule that to David, right? Do you want to text him? So basically me doing that has populated a labour cost on the job, because that's specifically what it costs to send David to site for the time I booked. And it's specific to David. They've all got different rates in on each employee. So David's paid X rate, his his employment costs are X, and the overhead cost is shared between everyone. Those three things added together give you a cost per hour, basically. That populates that section. So this is a common invoicing. This is how a common table looks when you're invoicing. If there's no POs allocated to the job and they use them to stock out their car. So basically it's saying that you're going to make $1,080 down here, but technically the boys would have used gear. The gear they would have used would have been that amount of money there. So you're going to make sure that we know that this profit is not correct because the materials haven't been allocated. And it can get confusing when you've got 20 POs and you're not sure what else the guys have used. What and how I'd run that is if we had a PO in there, just don't know how this is going to work.
Why is that relevant? Why do you...
I'm talking about this. I'm talking about invoicing at the moment because we're not invoicing properly.
What the job actually costs?
Where what we're looking, we're profitable, but we're not as profitable as what we could be because we're not looking at this properly.
And is it like a percentage of those types of things? Like
It's a multitude of different things that need to be looked at that gets the outcome of us doing it properly. So I'm just going through all the scenarios that I know can go wrong and where people get confused.
Because we obviously do a stock order, and that fits in overhead, right?
So when you go stock order, it will pin it to the job. Oh, a stock order.
Yeah, like when mine's
Yep.
a massive stock order.
Yeah, so that's when we're going to get caught out is if, as long as the guys are writing the materials on their notes, I'll show you what will happen.
When you make a PO in a job as well, you put a part number in, but they use your part number, that still shows up there. Both getting put into materials costs, and that doesn't get fixed on the back end until Aaron and Mitch do their thing.
Yeah, well, I
And
mean, I
adjust
used to tidy them up, but then it was causing accounts issues.
Yeah.
So
don't
we
freak
tidy
out.
them now.
Don't freak out with the materials bit. The materials cost as well at the same time. If your PO's got, if you order a shitload of stuff and then CNW've gone and put all the right part
Different
numbers, it
parts,
still comes
yeah.
through on the PO. With all the
No, there's a way of finding that though. You do need to know how to read it
What's actually being received?
because what's received populates a number and what's not received stays in a square bracket. So as long as we know what that is, but that's going to be taken into account because in that instance, you'd be reading you're making less money, but you're making more money. You know what I mean? So it's just important we know what we're looking at when we're prepping jobs, when your projects are ongoing. It's important that the projects ongoing have miscellaneous items attached. You either buy materials for the whole thing. You have to. You lose track of it, hey? Yeah. For service work, yeah. So you guys know what it looks like. If you populate a PO, it will populate this section in inverted brackets until it's receipted. In a commercial instance, obviously you're not using pre-builds. So that's going to delete everything here. See how that all went red? It's because it's saying you haven't estimated anything for labour. But you've gone and scheduled this on David, so you're $537.07 out because of what you got in the schedule. Okay? So how a commercial job would technically look, right, is you're going to have a catalogue item. Had some catalogue items, you're going to have some labour. So I'll just go into here now. So you see the materials estimated is now populated, but nothing in actual, okay? Because you haven't allocated. So to allocate stock, you go stock allocated or stock required. Because we haven't got any of these in stock, it's not letting me allocate. Let me just find an item that we can allocate. I might delete that. 2 secs. These ones, I'll just go 20 of them,
Greenies.
20 of them, and 5 of them. All right, so go back. So that's populated the estimate figure here. You click in stock required. So you can see in here that we need 5 of them and 20 of them. You can just go 5, 20. Sorry.
Bottom one. I used to.
Oh, sorry. What did I do there? Anyway, long story short, I don't know what happened there, but see how this, where I'm getting at is that it populates the actual figure. When you put in labour down here, so remember this was at 0 on the estimate before.
Yep.
It's now populated this. But what Simpro is telling you is you have not got enough labour in your billing to cover the cost because it's red. See the red line against here?
Yep.
Saying you've over allocated on materials, so you're green. You haven't booked out your materials you've allowed for. Here basically says that you haven't allowed enough labour in your billing to cover what's in the schedule. That is it. That's all you need to know. That's the ins and outs of the whole thing.
They'll need to be green.
Yeah. Ultimately, they need to be green. If they're not green, you need to make up your money through extra material markup to cover the loss in labour. It's probably the only way you're going to be able to do it. Or somehow accrue extra hours, which most of the time you can't do.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot of times when we are doing charge jobs, our estimates should always be the exact same as the actual.
Close to.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless like you can
Yeah.
changes and stuff.
Yeah.
that come along.
And then basically, you want to make sure that these markups, like that dictates what you make on your labour, basically.
You're going to go into like the bottom figure, the net margin.
Yeah, I will. This figure here, you can't allocate materials all the time, right? You never can. So how I look at it and how I look at a table like this, I'm just going to chuck some extra hours on here to make this look a little bit more realistic. This is a typical example of an invoice. So basically, my eye's always pinned to the bottom of the actual section, but there's discrepancies here. So this would be an instance where a PO has been receipted, but stock items not allocated. Because like this would be the amount on a PO, but there's other items in the job that are accruing extra that we haven't allocated. So this figures out by whatever that gap is, $80 or something like that. And the labor is obviously out by, what's that, $15. So you're out by $100. So technically you made $193 instead of $293. So it says you've made 29%, but really you've only made, so 193 divided by the ink value, 1091, you've only made 17%, not 29%. That's a lot of money when you got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jobs a month, is where I'm getting at. So a lot of people don't understand this, and it's probably not something to wrap your head around at first. Like it does twist your brain up a little bit. But if you have any instances where you want me to have a look and check it, just let me know and I can help or whatever. But biggest thing, especially with ongoing multi-day attendances, is making sure we're on top of what happened on the certain days, or keep it on top of within 2 to 3 days. If you've got 10, 12, 14 days of stuff going on, especially time material jobs, you've got to keep track of the materials. That's where it goes wrong, that I've seen. Especially if the guys write it in their notes and we put it in the job, but then we don't allocate. This number goes up bigger, this number stays low, and that's where you lose out. All right? And yeah, that's it. Really? That was very quick, very fast.